The Lord be with you. All right. Thought I'd start out with the prayer. I always like the Book of Common Prayer.
Let me get my thing.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. This is a prayer for guidance. O God, by whom the meek are guided in judgment, and light rises up in darkness for the godly, grant us in all our doubts and uncertainties the grace to ask what you would have us to do, that the spirit of wisdom may save us from all false choices, and that in thy light we may see light, and in thy straight path may not stumble, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Father. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yep. Oh, and if somebody needs an agenda, Rudy has agendas in the back. Okay. You already have everything you need. You already have everything you need. When I first heard those words pop in my head, I was a little worried about what was going on with my mental state. But after working for 30 years in mental health, I was pretty certain that I wasn't having auditory hallucinations or some kind of schizophrenic delusion. But it was a clear thought that I had. Probably the clearest thought I've had in recent months. So I assumed it might be of divine origin. But then I immediately began to question my assumptions. What kind of statement is that, I wondered? I'm no Samuel waiting to hear God ring my bell. But just on the chance there might be something more to the statement, I started looking at both Scripture and my own experiences at St. Edmunds to see if that statement would fit our current situation. I even checked to see what other religious traditions say about the subject. To start with, I thought about all the times we thought St. Edmund was doomed. Well, not doomed exactly, but as they say, star-crossed. We've had our share of inopportune moments over the years. Losing priests, disagreements with the diocese, losing members due to cost of living in the Bay Area, not to mention a pandemic that shut down services for almost 2 years. And our members have experienced personal issues as well as legal and financial problems, divorce, loss, isolation, health issues, mental health issues, not to mention the general issues that accrue to anyone who survives this world long enough. So when I think about planning for St. Edmunds for the coming year, I sometimes have more anxiety than unmitigated hope for the future. You already have everything you need. Could that be true? What about having enough money to fix the roof? What about all the people who've left the church for either clear or unclear reasons? What about the idea that we can't count on the diocese to fix all our problems for us, and even if we could, we might not want to? I started to think about how the disciples initially handled the loss of their Lord and Savior. Maybe there was something instructive there. There certainly were unknowns at the time, just as with any movement that is just starting out and trying to find its way. I don't know as much about church history as some of you, but as far as I can tell, it looks like the early church never really became standardized until the Council of Nicaea under Constantine, 300 years after Christ's ascension. I don't think St. Edmunds can wait 300 years to fix the roof, let alone any of the other issues. But the example I did come up with that seemed helpful was the disciples at Pentecost, where God sent his Spirit. Even after Christ was gone, the work continued. And other scriptures come to mind, like the Great Commission, the sending out of disciples, who were encouraged not to take too many provisions on their long journey, and how that relates to the kingdom of God. Jesus once said, "The kingdom is within you." That seems like a situation where you must have everything you need if that basic tenet of Jesus' teachings is within and with us. I also keep coming back to a letter Sandy Kirkpatrick wrote a few years ago for a previous annual meeting that struck me even at the time as important. Basically, it talked about how a young St. Edmunds wound up in the very back of Pacifica. So far back, by the way, that when recently we had to call emergency crew to come to the church, I had to literally run down the street to direct them away from the first church they came to let them know there was another church back here that needed their help. But back to Sandy's letter. The description of St. Edmunds was interesting. We had been thinking there was no way for a church in such a remote spot to make an impact on the community at large. But that very remoteness has been critical for our success. Even before there were such things as GPS to easily guide people to our doors. There was no greater demonstration of our impact than when our neighbors tried to shut down our efforts to help people who were houseless. And as far as our taking care of each other, I think the pandemic showed us how much we depend on each other for spiritual growth and direction. And those things are not dependent on a priest, on the diocese, or anything but our own commitment to helping each other be the best we can be. So today you will hear something about our progress on various social and other issues, as well as the outlines of our financial picture. And the BC members will listen carefully to your input about what priorities St. Edmunds should have for 2023. Just remember, you already have everything you need. Okay, Ruby, you're up.
Good morning. I'm not going to ask you to learn any new music. And I didn't write anything because I was hoping that Dan would forget. You know, this is all very vague and amorphous in my case. We listened to a sermon from Reverend Leonard a couple of weeks ago, who reminded us that it was all very well and good to gather and have communion together and to worship as a body. But was that enough? Did we need more? Did we want more? And that sparked kind of a conversation in the Bishops' Committee, of which I am not a member. I just am an interloper, because I'm Mabel's daughter and nosy. And then today, Joel was reminding us of the necessity of having a vision. And so I think it's really important that we sort of think about what things are important, not just as a community, but personally. What do I need more from this place and from you and from my spiritual walk? And I have to sort of tell you a little bit about where I am. Some of you may know that this parish has had a tradition of having a very strong Curcio community, and that's had a really big impact on my life in that it's sort of based on three principles on piety, prayer, study, and action. And they, each of them sort of feed into one another. And if we as a parish look at what needs to be done, the roof, now our visitor back in the sacristy who has eaten through the tile. Yeah, that's great fun.
Endangering the organ
Endangering the
wires,
organ,
yes.
Electronic stuff. The labyrinth that needs repairing, all the bits and pieces of household upkeep and physical upkeep. If we look past all of that and look to what we, each of us individually, have to offer or what we're seeking, then I think that's really very important. It means that we don't have to go side one more thing. I mean, look at us, we're not very many, but we're an intrepid band. And if we keep a dream, if we keep a vision, and we find the 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 things that we do and do well and enjoy doing, then I think, that's the more. I think we're being called to find ways of looking at the world around us, looking at our families, looking at this place, looking at ourselves, and finding that. And thinking about how we can offer that to someone else. So it doesn't become a burden, it just becomes kind of an extension of what we do. I love planning the music for Sundays. I mean, it takes a while, but I love doing it, and I can offer that. Tom has all of this experience with, he knows people who know people who know people. And that's really important to have somebody like that. Ted knows more about this building and how it's put together than any of us will ever know. And Douglas, he's always there, and Catherine can tell us about all the things that we should have thought about and need to be thinking about for Altar Guild and things. So, it takes all of us and all of our dreams and all of our skills to make things work. And that's part of what's more for me. What's more for me is not what's more for Dan. Do you love to read? Would you like to form a group where we can talk about books that we've read? Do you sew? Do you, just all of those things. Go to make and I'm rambling now, and I understand that. That's one of my not so wonderful
You're doing
gifts.
good, you're doing good.
Several years ago, when Kathy first got here, we were sort of floundering, and she said, we need to have a group that helps us find our hope and a vision. And I keep going back, because I have lots of times when I'm just kind of going, okay, God, what now? And I keep remembering that, I think it's in Jeremiah. Oh, my Sunday school teachers would be so embarrassed. That says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. And I think that both these sermons in the last couple of weeks have been calls for us to find the plans that God has for us, individually and together. And so I've rambled way too long, and I'm sorry you didn't forget yet.
I'm not, Ruby. I appreciate what you're
Okay,
saying.
but, that's what I've got. I'm sticking to it. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, Rudy, you're next. Yeah, Ruby and Rudy. How would I ever keep that straight? Do you need me to do anything technical?
Huh?
Or are you set?
No, I'm.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. You've got the videographer report. Oh, and tell them what your subject is, so.
Well, this is the, sort of the videographer report. That I thought maybe I should do one of those at this meeting. All right, so a lot has changed in 1 year. At the time of our last annual meeting, we had only been doing live services for a few months. My equipment consisted of a computer, a room mic, and a camera right over here where Dad's sitting right now. Of course, nobody can see that on the live feed, but you know. So now we can transmit video and audio wirelessly with a cell phone and lavalier microphones. And I'm now even using a professional style mixer and a much more professional room mic. All that transmits into an online service that has dramatically risen in quality in 1 year's time. There are many benefits to that. People who live far away can now tune into the service with ease. My grandparents can watch it. People who came to our church but moved away can watch it. And if you want to stay home and eat cookies while watching the service, you can. Numerous couples have baptized their babies here. Now they have a video of the service that can be watched years or even decades in the future. We've had a new presence. We've had new people come to our church because they saw our services online. And we have an online presence in the community. It has changed a lot since they came in on March 8, 2020 with just a little camera and a little lavalier microphone. So now we have an online presence in our community. The online services have allowed us to weather the pandemic, and when we came back, provide real-time services to those who can't join us in person. And I've certainly learned a lot over these last 2 years about video, audio, and live streaming. And those skills will help me in other jobs. Another thing I want to talk about, in addition from bringing the church service to the quality where people couldn't hear the audio, like, now you can pretty much hear it. It's pretty good, I think. And I also done a number of specialty little videos, like the dog, what's it called?
Blessing of the Pets?
Blessing of the Pets. We've done the St. Edmunds, All You Bound to Lose, and all sorts of other stuff. So it's not just the live service.
And the election vigil.
The election vigil, that actually went on for 23 hours, and since it won't save after 12 hours, you can't really see the stream anymore. You just kind of got to watch the 50-minute, but it was kind of impressive that I was able to get my computer to live stream for 23 hours straight. So that's definitely proof of concept in the future. Thank you all for all your support, and here's to many more years of providing live services to our growing community. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rudy. All right.
Question.
Yes.
How many people per week are now viewing what's broadcast?
Do you know the answer to that, Rudy?
Yeah, hold on, let me get it up. So, it sort of ranges from anywhere from like 2 people to even like 5 or 6. Like today we had like 6 or 7 people online. And when we do baptisms, I've had as many as 100 people watch it after the fact.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
The next part I put an item here on here was about the finance committee report, and unfortunately I don't think we have anybody who can talk about the finances because Linda. Oh, maybe Sandy could talk about finances.
They're simple questions.
Okay, I did like I think I passed out these the info. Can you come up here though, Sandy?
I said simple questions.
Yeah, that's okay. I did pass out this thing. Brian helped me to put together a spreadsheet
Yes.
that has the basic income and expenses. And in conjunction with Sandy's information and Renee's.
So I can answer about information, but
Okay.
I didn't really look at the spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, you probably know as much as any of us about where things stand financially.
Well, we'll break even
There you
this
go.
year. And we may even have a little money left over at the end of the year. We always have some expenses that we can't predict. The P.O. box always goes up. The rent for the P.O. box goes up, and sometimes it goes up a lot, sometimes a little. It feels random when it comes. So, but that's several $100s. But almost everything else is predictable, and yeah. So yeah, we'll have some, maybe even a couple thousand in savings. We have a lot of money in savings that is designated funds, so we can't use those to just pay bills. We can use that for the roof.
As designated.
As designated,
Yeah.
various projects. So, yeah, we had funds dedicated for the library, which we mostly use. It turns out there's a few $100s left in that account. But, yeah, so these designated funds do help us.
We're solvent for
projects.
this year.
It's as far as we can go, you know that. It's as far as we can go. Yes.
When looking at the paperwork, I see nothing in terms of income from Montero on Zendo. And my impression is that Montero Mountain Zendo has devolved to one person.
Huh.
Yes, that's my distinct impression from
Okay.
the person who uses it the most, and I don't think there's more than one person whose practices in that Zendo, so since it's not noted in the income category, I think it's appropriate to at least note and be concerned about. I'm not interested in displacing what was done and nurtured by Brad Barba, but the fact that the remaining person hasn't encouraged more participation than himself is a little problematic.
If we were to find a need for the space for ourselves, that would be something we would need to talk about.
Or, you know, we might be able to, you know, to resurrect that sort of effort in some other way.
Well, I think it depends on said person and or people interested in it. I mean, the COSI Asana folks and those attendant activists, users of the patio in terms of closing, in terms of particularly when we were closed. They continue and they continue to support us, but I don't know if anybody is sitting in the Zendo other than one person.
Does business owner use the room?
No.
Okay.
They've used this room in the past, in the back, to sit and meditate.
I was surprised to see kind of a lot of money from Tai Chi. I hadn't even heard it was.
Yeah,
group that is over $100 a month.
Oh yeah, because that's what during the pandemic, I managed to get our Tai Chi group, because the library was closed, so we started meeting over here in the labyrinth. And yeah, they actually, they've been a significant contributor, you know, because that adds up, you know, week after week. We just kind of pass the hat. And
And is the library now, would they go back to the library?
I don't think so, because the library's been open and they like it here. You know, it's a beautiful spot in the labyrinth, and you know, people have got. I certainly like it, so I'm not going to complain. I like the fact that it makes money for St. Edmunds, and And it's really, in terms of like doing Tai Chi, it's really the perfect spot. So, that's kind of one of those things, a positive thing in terms of income, right?
Right.
That gets
So
added.
Tai Chi, Vipassana, right?
There you go.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these, it's good, Tom, you're mentioning this, because some of these, we gotta follow up on to see, well, what are we gonna, maybe there's some ways to, increase some of the use and income,
What does the Tai Chi group mean?
Saturdays at 8:30 to 10. Everybody I tell the time it meets, they always say, "Oh, that's good," and then they turn and walk away.
8:30.
Any other questions for Sandy about the finances?
Well, in general, I see percentage of total and the sign increase estimate to be 15,500. Is that what we're working with as a projection?
I guess that was kind of
Okay,
something
I
that
guess
that's
that-
something that Brian came up with. So
Well, because we are without a specified increase, we really can't predict what our expenses will be that way. Just as a for instance, even though we pay our supply priest the same thing in terms of the salary,
Yeah.
they get mileage also from their home. Well, one lives in Daly City and one lives in Santa Cruz, so that's different just by itself.
Yeah.
And so that changes what our cost is. What we don't pay for supply priest is pension or benefits like health and that sort of thing, because they're not on the payroll. We were doing that, of course, with Kathy. But if they're not on the payroll, we're just paying him each week.
Right.
Then so in the long run, it's cheaper, but not a whole lot cheaper than having someone on the payroll. Isn't that what that was what Renee finally.
that's
together on
that's
that.
what I got out of
Yeah.
what she said. So
Yeah.
thank you for confirming that, because it's always, for me, it's always hard to kind of figure out.
It's kind of apples and oranges, but it is, you want to know what it is out of our pockets, and that's pretty much it. So as an estimate, it's as good as any. Yeah. Anything else?
Not related specifically to something you can answer, but are we planning on doing a systematic request for pledges for the coming year? 1. 2, what does the diocese expect of us? Both in terms of
The assessment?
services by supply priest or an appointed vicar part-time. And 3, not related to finances, but normally at the annual meeting, we have sought or encouraged people to step forward to be on the next year's bishops' committee. Ding, ding, ding.
Right.
I'm asking.
Okay, so am I through here?
I think that's probably all the questions that you can.
Well, I will say one thing though, since you brought up the diocese.
Yeah.
They're going to change the calculation for our assessment for
Okay.
next year. I don't know that it will benefit us,
Right.
but I don't think it'll be hugely different from where we are now. But the algorithm that they use to calculate that is changing.
I'm curious how you got that information. Did someone contact you?
How did I get that information?
Because since we don't
I
have
got
a
a
note. Since we don't have
No,
a
I got
note.
a note. It came in a payroll. It came in.
Yeah, you said Linda, right?
What?
You said Linda Peebles? from-
I think she mentioned that, but I also got it in our, that we get our invoices twice a month from the diocese, and they also put in notices and that. I get all that,
Yeah.
so.
Right. And
Yes.
there was a fair amount of discussion apparently at convention about how assessments were made. And so I'm sure that
It wasn't up when I looked, but I haven't looked recent. I looked as soon as I heard it from Linda, and then but it wasn't up yet, even
Okay.
from the notice from them.
Mhm.
Okay? Yeah, well.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is the assigned vicar or the warden should be the conduit for information from the diocese.
Doesn't work that way.
And the operative word is should.
The operative word is should.
Yes.
Yeah.
And canonically and bureaucratically,
Yeah.
it is a strong should, not informal word of mouth by the person who is the vicar. Word of mouth is not necessarily policy. Word of mouth is not necessarily accurate. We need accurate information from the diocese, period. Not just in terms of assessment, but again, what is their expectation of St. Edmunds, not just financially, but in terms of staffing?
Yes. Everything you're saying is absolutely correct.
Preaching to the
John.
choir here,
Yeah,
but the reality is different,
yeah.
so.
No kidding.
Okay.
It is.
Professionalized versus word of mouth or Jesus said.
Yeah. It's something that we are on, it's a issue of ongoing discussion within the BC, as you know.
But the discussion needs to go to the canon mission from you.
Mhm. It is a point at which I have already been in contact with
It's an answer.
that person.
You know, I mean,
Okay. Betsy, you're up if you
Hey, Dad,
are able. Yeah.
you might want to sit like over there because you might be blocking the sound a little bit, making it.
Oh.
Cause notice it's a little softer.
Okay. All right.
Just so we don't pick up the goodest sound quality as possible.
Reiterate that we've been working on maintaining some of the rooms that have been neglected for a long time. And I think everybody knows our first room was the library that we.
And it looks great.
Yeah.
Those windows.
The windows were really key. Because it was so moldy in there because the windows didn't fit, there's a lot of leakage around the
one
windows.
was particularly bent over.
Right, right, so we, got windows and then we, painted the room, had the room painted, and Dan put a lot of hours into cleaning the rug, it was a lot of white vinegar. And then, I worked at, wiping down the books and getting it organized, so it's available for people to use. I don't know that many people are using it, but it is there if anyone wants to use it. And then, we kind of concentrated on the Sunday school room that needed a lot of, getting rid of stuff that was not needed in there anymore. Thanks to, Dan and Janet helped with that too.
And Georgia.
Identifying stuff, and then Georgia was, just a big bonus, was cleaning it. She organized and cleaned it and put it, so did Dan and Georgia did. So they did a great job.
I cleaned. George was the organizer.
Yeah,
Trust
she did
me.
a great job of organizing and getting rid of stuff we didn't need. And now you can use the kids can use the little bathroom, the low.
Where are the little kids?
Well, we had when the Mothers Club came recently, the kids use that bathroom, or anybody else. And I think when we've had baptisms, people have gone in there, the people with the kids have gone in and used that. So it's usable now. It looks so much better, and it's cleaned up. And then we have worked a little bit on the bathroom. We had to close one bathroom because we found a lot of mold behind the vanity cabinet there. So we did hire somebody to clean it, who was a great cleaner at a reasonable price, and they did clean the whole bathroom. And then I think Dan came in to do more cleaning around the mold part. We haven't really figured out what to do next, because it looks like we probably using her cell phone so late, you know? I mean,
We did also get the
got
electricity
the electrical
working in there.
fixed,
There
yeah.
there are two banks of lights which you got fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's light in there now, and we can, once we get the file cabinet out of the way, we can see better in there. And then the room really needs to be cleaned. So those are the cleaning projects we've been working on so far.
Where is the coffee room? Is it that
It's
little
across
room?
from the bathroom.
Yeah, do you know where the Zendo is?
Next to the Zendo.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's where our big copy machine and a lot of paper is.
Right. Thank you, Betsy, and thank you for all your work on that. Really appreciate it, really appreciate it. Okay. So now we're up to, what do people want for 2023? So.
More bodies next year in annual meeting. No, I'm
Uh-huh.
not kidding.
Yeah, no, that's true, good point, more bodies.
Well, I mean, annual meetings are supposed to be noticed to every member of the congregation 3 weeks beforehand. Was that done?
It was probably an email.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
You didn't think it was an email?
no. That, and the email is not sufficient also.
Hmm.
Many people are not email sufficient. Also, there are people who are on our list who, have they been communicated with? Have they been seen? A phone call? How are you doing? What do you know, does St. Edmunds fit with your life plans, you know?
Well, that's the dearth of
Well-
not having a vicar.
Well, no, but it's also, what is our responsibility to each other, vicar or no vicar?
It's a good point, good point.
Stacy?
Catherine, you were gonna say something?
I was,
Yeah. What do you want in 2023?
23 more bodies.
23 more bodies? Okay.
I don't know whether it's going to. You could go down and stand on the street corner, I suppose. and say,
Mhm.
you know,
Can you repeat what she says?
I'm sorry, I'm talking that way, and most of you are that way,
Yeah.
as I say.
You were saying we could stand on the street corner?
Stand on the street corner and everybody catch somebody and bring them with you. I don't think that's realistic, but it would be interesting. I don't know where we find 24 more people. I don't know why people come. It's a hard place to find. When I am out of Pacifica and we're staying in a hotel or something, the first thing I would do would be to take out a little telephone book and look under churches. Where is the Episcopal church in this town? So I know where to go on Sunday. But I don't know whether anybody does that except me. But we need to be in the phone book. I think it would be good if the Chamber of Commerce would get back on its act and put out the little St. Edmunds, the little Pacifica phone book that they put out. Mainly, it's an advertising thing for things.
Local businesses?
Yeah.
Businesses to be added to
Businesses.
Yeah, but
And they also then
Church.
list the population in the phone, as a phone book. But, you know, so many people today don't have a phone line because people use cell phones. And I don't know whether the telephone company would put cell phone numbers in their listing of people
Yeah,
or businesses.
it's an interesting question, yeah. And do we know about what the status of the Pacifica phone book is? Because I haven't even seen it for a
I think
while.
the Chamber of Commerce has discontinued annual record, but they used to give a listing of common fraternal or sorority clubs, and also a list of churches for free, not part of the advertising. But they used to be the record. I think I think they've even given up maintaining an office in Rockaway Beach. I think that office space has been rented to some of the other entities. So
Yeah, I think you're right. So some of this stuff requires us finding out about, but it's a
That was
good,
a very useful service.
yeah.
it was.
I mean, how else can you find?
I gotta tell you that most of the people who found us most recently in the last several years have been through the, the web. Look on the internet and they find us that way. Oh, Georgia, yes.
So the people that are coming to our church for baptism are watching what we do online of those baptisms. That's how a lot of the other families are coming through here. They saw us on a live stream.
And how did they get there? How did they happen upon it? You think they searched?
Yeah, I think they searched. I know because I've heard some families said, "Oh, we saw that baptism we did back, like Ryan's baptism. That's when we were interested. That's when we came in here to do the baptism." I'm like, "Where did we find this? We saw it on your online thing."
Interesting.
So some of it is more recent things with these younger families coming in. They see it online.
Yeah.
Well, the couple who was last baptized at John Baptist year, I met them when they were walking down the street and came to St. Edmunds. I chatted with them. So I said, please come back.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. That's important. That's follow-up. Josh, I want to, just because you're back there, I know you've been listening carefully. Anything you want to see in St. Edmunds in 2023?
Just need to find a regular priest, someone that cares about it, that will bring people in.
Yeah. And so having a regular priest is better than having supply.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's really in terms of building community.
Yeah, I think so too, that we need a regular priest that people can identify as being, our minister. Because I think we need that consistency of the same person and buy-in from the priest too, to the community. Sooner than later, that we need to line this up.
Yeah. Sandy?
I'm just agreeing with everybody here. One of the things over the years we found is, because we're the Bay Area, we can't really insist that our priests live here in town. But it's always been a concern that those priests who come to us and live elsewhere, we want them to buy into our community, and that includes the notion of the coast side and some of the unique things that there are here, and that we all live with. So that would be important, I think, in having someone regularly, rather than a couple weeks here and a couple weeks there. The other part of that, and I will say this from personal experience, is that without some regularity, you don't get as much pastoral care as we would from someone who is, regularly involved with the community and knows what's going on here.
I think that hasn't been the same, I'm not idolizing Sue, but since Sue left, that's been a big.
Yeah, it's been, yeah.
A huge gap.
Yeah.
And we do, I'm not saying that we don't take care of each other, because I do see that, and I feel that, but it is different.
Yes, you're right. You're right. That's been something that consistently comes up.
again and again.
How much did Sue work here? I mean, for
13 years.
But like hours?
hours, yeah.
She started it full time.
Oh, well, that makes
If
Yeah.
she started it maybe 3 days a week or, I don't know.
No, Sue,
Yeah.
she started it full time.
Oh, okay.
And over the years.
Yeah.
It was reduced, yeah,
She finished it half time.
yeah.
I think it was less than half time.
No, she was
No.
second.
Oh,
It was
okay.
0.5 at the end.
Yeah, because she had to work that much to get benefits and all
Oh,
that,
yeah.
so.
Yeah. Interesting.
And even though, you know, like Tommy said, we have a responsibility to each other, and I agree with that, I think that we need a central person who organizes.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the case, and I don't think you can afford a full-time, I think if we afford a .2 person, we cannot have that expect of them to be our mommy and daddy. I think that as a bishops committee, we need to do internal organizing in terms of the we that is the congregation, and think actively about it, divorce from being dependent on a person who has a collar, but owes only so much time. Seriously.
Right, we need someone who's in charge of pastoral care, whether it's a priest or not.
Well, we have to do pastoral care, whether or not we have a priest.
Right.
A priest can assist us with that and assist with the administration of the sacraments, but
Oh, that's a good point. Ruby, oh, so good, Betsy.
Yeah, did we have a lot more income when Sue was here?
Well, we had 2 services, and we had, I think probably 60 or 70 pledging units. We're down 15 or 20 now, so.
well, I think we had as many as 30 plus, but pledging, I don't know if we had more than that.
Yeah. We had a budget of well over $100,000, so.
Right, right, yeah, it's changed,
Yeah,
it's changed for sure.
in spite of rising costs.
Right, right.
So.
Ruby?
Kathy worked Sundays, and she had a day in the week also, did she not?
Yes, yes. Ruby looks like she was gonna say something.
No, I'm just standing to be warm and trying to hear.
Okay. Deborah, did you have anything any questions or things you wanna add?
A couple of things. One is, couldn't we have like a soup kitchen, like once a week or once a month, where we feed people and, you know, they're new to the church, new people. And the other is, and I had this question actually for a long time. Would the diocese pay again to support a priest living here? Do you know anything about that?
I'm looking behind you at Sandy.
All priests who are on payroll do get a housing subsidy. How they use that is up to them. So if they choose not to sell their house that they bought 30 years ago in Oakland, then they won't, but it will subsidize their housing and in fact, subsidize their commute. But, so they can use that housing allowance if they like. Our supply priests do not get a housing allowance, so they get allowed.
So is there some way to find out, like, priests that are available that already are in homes close to here? Can we find that out and then pitch them?
Yeah, I think that's partially how we have Leonard. When we talked to the diocese, they only had two alternatives for us of people who
who were available to do this kind of thing. And, you know, people can't afford to live here and to give their services away for free, although that's essentially what we're asking. I'm sure there's a roster of all the priests around in who are canonical in this area, whether or not they are interested.
But we don't know.
Is an unknown.
Well, actually, what we're supposed to get help from, and again, some of this is kind of that should thing, that what the diocese should do, as opposed to what they actually do. But there is a transitional ministry person, Denise Abanda. So she's the one I've been working with. She's the one who found Leonard and Joel. So they're currently the supply priests that we've been using.
I don't know, we already had a post in our story or whatever posted on Dynamites, right? So does that mean nobody contacted us?
Yeah.
I assume that they would have contacted them. I need to point out also that a lot of, you know, the communication is non-existent almost.
Right.
And we have an issue with it here, because the way that people communicate now is not part of our skill set. You know, do you have a skill set that would help you, you know, revamp our website, revamp our mailing list? I can't seem to get a mailing list together to work, period. But, so there's this internal thing, but also, because the bishop has announced his retirement,
Right.
things are even less concrete at the diocese, as far as I can tell, than they used to be. So, you know, everybody, I think, bears some responsibility for it. It's not that anybody is being intentionally opaque.
Right.
Things are gonna change. Things are gonna change.
Things are gonna change.
Right.
They don't know how it's gonna change, we don't. But I think our job now is for ourselves to be as clear about who we are and what we are, what we want, and what you know, how we can, you know, of course we don't want somebody to come and hold our hand and do everything for us, but we do need to have a figurehead, somebody that we can say, okay, this is, you know, that's the person who has canonical authority. And when I go a little off into left field, somebody can say, you know, did you check with the vicar? Because I tend to do that. So I think that's what we need. We just need somebody to be a grounding stick for us that says, you know, here's a person. And this is the person you go to when you have a question, real question, that we just kind of have gone astray on our own. So I think that's really important. It's important that we have a person, not 2 or 3 or 15, and never know exactly, you know, we just need to know something, good, bad, and different.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think it might be worth exploring, if there are services that we could share with the other Episcopal Church in Half Moon Bay. I looked on their website and they said they don't have a priest and they're using a supply priest. I don't know if there's, you know, something we could explore, or are there things that we're doing, that we're both doing and duplicating, that maybe we could try to share services somehow, or
did try that. Yes, and in my memory of it, say this, we all needed to be brought together to talk about how we were a community together, because it never gelled. So even when we had cookouts, their church would be over there, and our church would like sort of try to mingle, but their church didn't really try to mingle. So then we had smaller things like at Sue's house, but they still hung out with themselves. And we were like, I don't know, what are we doing? So I would imagine with all the people power that the church has, it has people who know how to teach to churches how to mingle, how to be a community. And especially post-pandemic, if I could say that.
Well, the ones that just did it are
They're really stopped being in community, and it's very difficult to get back. I've read many of the papers that were written about the 1918 flu, and people never came back together again. So we have learned now how not to be in community, which calls for even more of a reason why we need somebody to teach us how to be community. And I would think it would be a great gift to another church as well to work this together.
What were you saying, Carol?
Well, St. Elizabeth's in South San Francisco and St. Andrews in San Bruno have merged. So, I mean, right in our backyard, we do have 2 Episcopal congregations that just did that in the last several years. So I don't think that there's a person who can teach it, but I think there are local Episcopalians who have experienced it.
Also, the guy who was jointly vicar for Holy Family and the
Good Shepherd.
Good Shepherd was actually interested in visiting us before he went bye-bye, but he was jointly the vicar of both of the congregations, San Carlos and Half Bay. Quite a leap over coastal mountains.
Right, yeah, it's interesting. What's that, Janet?
I was making a comment that San Carlos and, they aren't that real far.
Right, it's just over 92.
Yeah.
It was Belmont, actually.
Oh, it's Belmont, okay, that's a bit, that's right, yeah.
And Janet, do you have anything you're looking for in the next year?
Yeah, it would be nice to have a regular priest.
Regular priest? It's kind of the main thing.
Somebody real charismatic is to get served and people want to have
Yeah.
Get those butts in the seats.
There you go. Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, Josh. One of the things that I think is really necessary, and this has got nothing to do with the priest, it's got to do with us and, partially me. You know,
Well, I do
people
need
come-
social lessons.
Huh? I know.
Right,
But we ask people, we need some way of follow-up with people who do show up. And sometimes I remember to get their addresses or emails if they write them. And sometimes I remember to send them a note. But, you know, to tell the truth, I really don't very often. And there's no systematic way of doing that. And if people come and then nobody says, "Ooh, dog," then
Right.
why do you come back? You know,
Well, we used to
and
have visitors, but.
Yeah.
Well, we have a visitor.
It's
We
here.
have it.
it's here, but it's, you know.
Who directs them to it?
Right.
It's not right there. Oh, is that there?
You have to be
Yeah,
walking.
okay.
And we had greeters.
I don't like to sign in, so. I would
I would like to interject it.
Hang on, Carol's got something.
Okay, so Josh said, you know, you're hoping for someone if we did say get a vicar who was charismatic, if that person clashed with Ruby so bad that Ruby got pushed out, then I
Oh,
would
no,
say
no,
no.
So I figure the organ is louder than they are. But really, I'm serious about follow through, and you know, I don't want this to be my responsibility. I mean, I feel bad when I don't do it, but you know, that ought to be all of our responsibility. But with one person sort of primarily responsible for making sure that somebody says hello, or when somebody comes back, they say, oh, it's nice to see you again.
Like when we have greeters.
Yeah. Or even calling, and I need to do that, calling people who haven't been here for a while, say, are you okay? You know, be really nice to see you, we
Yeah.
miss you. So that, I don't know.
I think
There
those are,
was a roster at the next BC meeting, that might be beginning.
yeah, that is a possibility. There is a possibility. I want to check with Doug, just because Doug has been quiet, so.
I'm always quiet, I haven't been.
Well, I mean, just from, what I was wondering about Doug is just, like, your role has changed over the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you've been the only person, right? The only lamb
Yeah.
that, you know, for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like,
Well, Kathy did away with 8 o'clock. There were two lambs at least
yeah.
at 8 o'clock, but Monica left.
Right. So I'm just wondering, Doug, like, do you like doing more or less or about the same? Because, you know, I always wonder, like, if you'd rather some days be at home, you know.
Well, I don't want to stay home, I'm never gonna stay home.
Okay.
I'm coming to church every Sunday, no matter what, or whether I'm doing something or not, I'm gonna be here.
Okay.
And this is how I look at it. I come to church on Sundays, and if you need me, I'm here. And if you don't, I'll sit out here. Today, Josh was here, you know, we're training we have new people to do limbing now. Janet and Josh. So I came in this morning, and I was on a limb, but I saw Josh. I said, you want to limb this morning? Josh said, fine. So I got to sit out here, because he was up there.
So that works for you.
That works for me.
Okay. Well, I'm checking because I keep hearing from Ruby sometimes that you can't always assume people just because somebody's been doing something
Well,
that.
you can't, but that's, we do that, and you know, for the most part, you know, each one of us is okay with what we're doing, for the most part. But I know that there have been instances of people who have just been taken for granted and who have voted for their seat.
Right.
But you see, I didn't mind limbing every Sunday. I was gonna be here anyway, like I'm saying. I mean, my wife's an organist, you know, I'm gonna be here.
Right.
Now, who's there to replace her?
That-
Nobody.
That is good.
Okay?
Yeah.
But since I'm gonna be here anyway, since I come to church here, I'm not just to church, I'm gonna be here every Sunday.
Yeah.
And so if I'm here and there's nobody to limb and you need me, I'm there. So for that period of time that I was young on limb, that's no big deal, I was gonna be here anyway.
So you got the limb stuff covered. You just would urge us to like have some backup for the organist.
Well, that'd be nice. Well, talk to her about that, you know, yeah.
It's called succession planning.
There you go.
That's what we say in business.
I know.
Plan for.
Yeah.
I understand. I really do. Okay.
Huh?
Well, more directly to the point, Renee is going to be leading us, she'll be moving in the spring.
Right.
And she does a lot.
Yeah.
So does,
Oh, we know.
do some succession planning for that.
Yes.
So that's the more immediate one that I see.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Which is why I was very happy that Brian was able to like at least, put together some initial stuff. Not that he's gonna replace what Renee's doing, but at least that he can be somebody that we can call on for help. And that's kind of my hope, would be that we can engage some people to do some parts of like things, not just Renee, but some other things where we have to have some kind of backup, because otherwise, we're not going to be able to get it done at some point, right? Anybody else have anything that hasn't been mentioned so far that they want to see in the coming year?
I was wondering, can we do any outreach with the Pacific Mothers Club? We've got kids and children here in our sanctuary, and could we participate maybe actively somehow? I don't know, to encourage them to hang around.
I think that's a great idea.
Like offer cookies, or maybe parents don't want that, but something, talk a little bit about it. Maybe have someone in the Sunday school room.
What are they doing when they're here?
Clothing swap.
They're doing clothing swap, but a lot of them bring their little ones, and they have little snacks and stuff. I'm not 100% sure. But they might want to bring their kids if they knew their kids would be occupied somehow. Maybe not. Some parents want to get away. I don't know.
Well, they seem to be super well organized in the swaps, and sometimes.
But I also, sorry.
Go ahead.
You're correct, but my thought was, I also don't want to be so evangelical about a church that it turns them off. I don't want them to think, oh, you're kind of like a captured audience type thing, either. I don't.
Well, the thing is, we don't offer anything for kids.
That's what I'm saying, but if we had something like,
We don't offer anything at all to children at this school, at this church. And I don't think we're gonna ever grow the congregation unless we can start appealing to young families.
I actually heard from somebody who, I can't remember who this was, told me about a situation. This one church, they had all old people, like older than us, I gather.
My Lord.
And they wanted kids. So what they did is they provided one day a week where they provide Friday night. They provided childcare to people in the community, and so young parents could like have a date night, drop their kids off and have a date night, and that's how they ended up growing their. That's how they ended up growing their congregation. So there's always something like that we could do if we want to. It's just a matter of who and so forth, and and that's why the idea of partnering with Mothers Club is so great, because then it doesn't have to be one of us adding to the 15 million things we're doing to try and accomplish everything.
well, if we do advance, maybe we could just do a godly play in there, and kids that want to stay would stay. The parents would go to the clothing swap.
Sure.
But also their participation in our interaction is so symbiotic that they've worked and cleared that
upper parking lot.
The last time they paid to have it cleared, they use us well, and they clean up well, and they're welcome. Moving beyond that without being overly evangelical or proselytizing, it's probably worth some discussion.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Or maybe get a bouncy house, but I don't know if that's like insurance and all that kind of
A
thing.
bouncy house.
Do you remember when the Reese's used to have their parties?
I do.
Yeah.
They would bring
Yeah.
families.
They would.
Unfortunately, never sort of across the holiday. I think a couple times people came,
Yeah.
a Sunday or two, and then went on.
Right. Well, these are all great ideas. I think if we keep coming back, and I would encourage people to do some more of these things. And I can put it on the schedule or whatever, but I mean for people to participate. But because having one meeting once a year is not enough to accomplish all this stuff. So that's my 2 bits. my 2 cents, whatever, that I would think if we get together, you know, maybe, I don't know what's doable, but, you know, once a quarter, maybe we could do
Or
something
a
like that.
committee.
Or a committee. Yes, yeah. Committees, yeah, those of us who've not had too much of committees could do that, I suppose, you know. What did you have in mind, Carol?
Well, it's not my forte, we need somebody who's fresh, who's gonna think of those things. That's why I'm never on the bishops committee, because I'm just a wet blanket, you know. Sam. And so, you know, what we're lacking is someone who naturally wants to think of those things and lead those things.
Mhm.
I mean, I think yeah.
Well, I'd also like to point out that there's nobody keeping track of any of these ideas. Somebody writing anything down.
He's writing down. That's easy.
Well, I didn't write this.
Oh, yeah, he's been writing down.
Being very
Did you call me Anglican?
Yes, you did. He said you were being very Anglican about it.
Call his parents and tell them.
You know, the Anglicans are not the only ones who know about meetings and committees. Well, I mean, Carol, that's you know, it's an interesting idea, but I mean, it doesn't. We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for somebody to like take that on. I mean, we can figure out something that works with the people we have, or we can partner with other organizations, or we can reach out to people individually who might want to help with something like that.
But why hasn't it already happened?
Well, it's not easy, right? It's not easy, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just, you know, if we have enough. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I put some discussion time into this meeting, so that we can just, you know, kind of brainstorm a little bit and figure out, well, what is possible, what is doable. You know, because I'm not interested in. I like the idea of dreams. Hang on, George, I'll get to you. I like the idea of dreams. I think it's very important, but I'm kind of more pragmatic about it. Like, you know, what is realistic to get done in 2023? Georgia, what do you got?
So I want people to remember though that we have just come through a pandemic that is not over yet.
Right.
And so what has happened is there are a lot of reservations for people coming back. I heard from Joan that she had her doctor tell her not to come back to church for some time. She is just coming back now.
Mm-hmm.
She told me, I feel like I can come back safely now. And so I think that that's what we're feeling and seeing right now, is a lot of hesitation to come back into this space. And so as we prepare things like the Sunday school room and the library and stuff, and we lost some groups that were here. We've gained some other groups, and so they're beginning to come back. We're beginning to sort of see what can we do now? What feels safe that we can do here again? And so I think so, as much as we want to keep these things going, and there is it's almost like a millstone, almost like stuff that's dragging us because of the pandemic. Right.
Wow.
In a lot of ways, and that, you know, and you see that throughout the whole society, right? Yes. We're all attempting to try to figure out, okay, do we take a mask off
when they can, coagulate, they don't. So people are feeling the same thing about church, everything else. I mean, theaters, look what's happening.
Well, it's all demographic shift.
Yes.
I was just talking to my girlfriend yesterday, or the other day, she's in a big Lutheran, or formerly big Lutheran church in the city. And she said there's not one family under 35 in the whole church. They're just not doing it. But that's what blanket, sorry.
it's true.
But that's reality.
That's a good face.
There's a demographic.
It's been studied, yeah. We're in deep water here. This is, we're not gonna just come together and like, oh yeah, I know what to do.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's something like that out that it really is a sluggish battle. I mean, we're like walking in like mud, right? Like in here. I mean, seriously, it's
Yeah, our big congregation is a lot better before the pandemic too.
yeah, we
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still here is a big tribute.
Well, maybe this is a thing that, or maybe we should look at this as being a test. A test from above. I don't know how well we pass the test, but these are things that we have to deal with, and how creative are we going to be, or should we beat our breasts that everything is going bad, or just deal with things as they are and just try to keep afloat, hoping that not giving up, keep doing what we're doing, discussing and talking and hope and looking for that little ray of sunlight that comes through that we can grab a hold of. I've always looked at this as being a test. Hang in there. Don't give up.
So that keeps you persevering.
That keeps me persevering.
Yeah.
Well, that builds resilience,
That's a super important.
And I think a part of that came from being a band director for 40 years.
Oh,
seriously.
Every time you get a new group of kids, right?
They had,
Play.
during that 40 years, I had periods of time where I had a band of 100 kids at one time in one room, because I got fed from the middle schools, and then all of a sudden I got a band of 40 kids, because after 4 or 5 years and these kids move on, those cycles change. Did I fall apart when I went from 100 to 40? No, because I knew that a couple of years later I was going to be back up to 70. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Cyclical. That's how things work.
Right.
And we write it, now the pandemic didn't help with the cyclical stuff. It just squashed everything, crunched on it.
Right.
But we still got to come back from this.
Yeah, we had a few young couples that were coming all the time, before the pandemic, and, since then, they moved away.
Yeah.
This mother that came a few weeks ago told me when I got in space with her, she said, this is a really calm space. I really like this. Now, does she come back? I don't know. Her child asked her to come back. Why can't we come back?
Audra was here, right, luckily?
Audra was not.
But who was here was Georgia, and I poked my head in there and I saw Georgia doing her thing, sitting there on the floor with this kid, and that she didn't know, and the kid didn't know her, but the kid was just like, oh man, this is great, I got the attention of this adult and everything else.
Right? But
Yeah.
I mean, the mom said that, they said, we just redid this space. She goes, it's nice in here. It's peaceful in this space. And I'm just checking it out with my child. They were gonna leave. She told me they were gonna leave. She walked in and the daughter was so freaked out that there was no kids in this space. She wanted her mom was gonna walk out. They were gonna leave. And she said, I invited her to come to that room and they stayed the whole time.
Wow.
You know,
We gotta start using that.
those little moments is what is gonna help.
Yeah.
Now she might come back, I don't know. But the fact that she said this is a home space, I really like it here, and then my daughter likes it, she wants to come back.
And that goes back to the wherewithal of Betsy and everybody else getting in there, cleaning up that room so that experience can happen.
What it does is it builds capacity. Now, if we didn't have that Sunday school room cleaned up, we wouldn't have the capacity. So when somebody shows up like that, we can't take advantage of it.
Right.
She left. She told me that, she said we were gonna leave.
they decided, we're not gonna freak out, we're gonna reconfigure, how we're gonna rent these places out, and how we can change regulations to make it possible for people to move into these places, because New York City is one example, knows they're not gonna get those office buildings filled again unless they turn into residential. So there was a discussion about, how people have to work on changing a lot of the rules that, are about office space building versus living. Like, you don't have to have a window in a office, but you have to have a window in a home, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting listening to that, because this is a huge hit to their market, huge.
Right.
And so there's going to be continual discussion on the radio, that's what I hear, about this, and I think you can learn a lot from what it is that's being worked on that is like huge. I mean, it's like, it's the world, it's not just like New York City. It's like we're all just not that.
It's very sure. Very sure.
Georgia, how's our time?
It's 12:52.
Okay. I'm feeling like we've kind of got about as far as we're gonna get today.
Some of us are hungry.
Ruby, do you have a song for us?
No, I promised you when I stood up there that I was not gonna make you learn. So.
Good.
Okay, well, I didn't make learn, so I thought maybe you had a song we could like sing.
Well, sing God Brian's been here.
That's good.
That's good.
We can sing that we've come this far by faith that.
We could do that.
That would be really appropriate,
We
yeah.
can just sing one chorus.
There we go.
Okay, we can do that.
And then Doug, can you say a prayer after that to close?
I can.
Can I just say one thing?
What?
If you, not to you, specifically to all of us, if you, go online and look at the, bishop search, there is a prayer for discernment and, clarity on finding, and you, first, I think it's not a bad thing that we, I mean, it's something we can use
Sure.
here also, maybe not in the service, but certainly those are prayers that we can make. It's the bishop's, on that account, look at the bishop's search, and there's a prayer for.
Now, I'll put that in my notes. I'll try and get some like notes out on this to people so they can, see if I missed anything to the ideas that we talked about. And then we'll have some kind of follow-up to this. I don't know yet when. Because I particularly, I'm sorry that we can't have Linda and David here, so we need to have something.
Linda got COVID. Yeah. A couple days ago.
Yeah, it's going around.
What number are we?
Oh, it's not, it's just,
Okay.
We've come this far by faith,
Leaning on the Lord.
Trusting in
in His holy word. He's never failed me yet.
Oh.
whoa.
Can't turn around. We've come this far by faith.
We've come this far by faith.
thank everybody for sticking around. I appreciate that.
We need prayer.
You don't need the prayer. Oh yeah, the music's the prayer. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. And energy.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. That's another year.